Hello everyone, this is Logan59XP here for another episode of the Nin-Cast here on December 18th of 2021, and I have just come back from seeing the long-awaited, the much-anticipated Spider-Man No Way Home, and I'm here to talk about it. But before we go any further whatsoever, I just want to say this right here, right now, to make sure everyone understands. Spoilers ahead. We are going to talk spoilers like crazy. So, if you have not seen this movie yet and you're not already blacklisting the internet for a couple of days, get off of YouTube, get off your phone, get off Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media you use, just get off of it and go see this movie. Because, spoiler alert, without really being a spoiler alert, it's really good. But yeah, so go ahead, go watch the movie. You've been warned. We're gonna get into spoilers. You get the point. So okay, so here we go. So Spider-Man No Way Home. So this movie. Now I know that this is a obvious. I know that this you could argue recency bias or whatever, but I think this is the best Tom Holland movie so far. Homecoming is one of my favorite MCU movies. I like Far From Home, not as much as Homecoming, but I like it. This one is something. This one is something. I mean that in all the right ways. This movie is a complete departure from the last two. And okay, where will we even start? Okay, so let's go and just address the first part of the movie. The one that we all, of course, knew was going to start the movie off, and that, of course, is the aftermath of the post-credit scene of Far From Home, where Mysterio reveals Peter's identity. Now, I know there were a lot of pessimistic people that were like, oh, they're just going to wipe over it. They're barely going to address it at all. It's just going to be over. And I would say, for the most part, they did not do that. Here's probably the number one thing about this movie I like the most. They treated everything with seriousness. Like, I was never one of those people that were like, oh, the MCU movies are just goofy fun times. There's no consequences. There's no stakes. I was never one of those people, but I really liked that they took the Peter identity and all the aftermath of that seriously. I really, really liked that. It wasn't just played off as like, okay, now it's solved. No. Throughout the entire movie, it's very much there. You can feel the weight. It's done very well. Big props to John Watts, Kevin Feige, and the rest of the crew for that. Now we come to the villains. So, of course, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Electro, Sandman, and the Lizard are our villains for this picture. There is no sixth one. There's no Venom. We'll get to Venom in a little bit. We'll get to Venom. We'll get to Venom later. But yeah, there's no Venom. There was no There was no Hobgoblin. There was no Vulture. There was no secret extra thing. It was just the five that we had already known, which I'm perfectly okay with. But that's what we got. So the Sinister Five. But whatever. Now, I need to say this up front before I go any further talking about the villains and the other characters from the other movies. I have not seen Spider-Man 1, 2, or 3, and I have not seen The Amazing Spider-Man 1 or 2. I know. I'll get around to it one of these days, I promise. Now, but that being said, though, I know everything that happens in those movies. I've seen enough, reviews and just videos in general and clips that, I know those movies. I haven't seen them, but I know what the movies are about. I know who's in them. I know how it plays out for the most part. So I didn't feel like I was being shortchanged, the full experience of, knowing the characters in depth. So, yeah. So I can't speak as someone that has seen the Raimi movies. I can't speak as someone that has seen the Mark Webb movies. But in this movie alone, the villains, for the most part, handled pretty well. Now, that doesn't surprise me, because I remember hearing rumors or something about, Sam Raimi and Mark Webb actually coming in and, helping out when it came to directing and writing those characters. So Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, obviously a treat. Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, obviously also a treat. Electro is pretty cool, obviously huge redemption arc from what he was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And then Sandman and the Lizard were actually on screen for more than I expected. I was expecting the bulk of the movie to just be Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and Electro, and then at the end for the Statue of Liberty fight, then they'd bring in the other whole thing with Doctor Strange. He's like, oh, they're all coming through and I can't stop them. I thought that was gonna be a lead into like the Lizard and the other guys coming in maybe or something like that. Point is, I did not think Lizard and the Sandman were gonna be in the movie as much as they were. I thought they were gonna be sidelined, for lack of a better term, and they don't get as much screen time as the other three, but they're there. Like, they are there for longer than I expected, and that's cool. Also, to everyone that was like, oh, are we actually going to get to see Thomas Hayden Church? Are we actually going to get to see, what's his name? The guy that plays Lizard. I can't remember it right now. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I'm going to butcher it. Like, were we going to actually see them, or was it just going to be, like, the Sandman and the Lizard CG, and that was it? No. We actually get to see them. Not for that long, but we get to see actual Flint Marko. We get to see actual, Kurt Connors, I believe is what his name is. Again, apologies if I'm screwing some of this up. And that's cool. And the whole thing that was kind of hinted at the trailer of, like, Spider-Man doesn't want to... Oh, Spider-Man. I'm going to say Tom, because as we'll get to shortly, there's a reason why I'm going to say Tom and not say Spider-Man. But, like, Tom's Peter Parker... He doesn't want to send them back to die. He wants to redeem them. He wants to, change the way things are for the better. And that's really cool. And he does. He redeems, I think, all of them. Well, they redeem all of them. Again, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a bit. And that's really cool. Again, I know that, like, some people are worried about, like, oh, they were, Doc Ock had his redemption, Spider-Man 2. Now they're going to they're going to ruin it because now he's a villain again, but he's not. I mean, sure, he's a bit of a villain at the beginning, but once they, fix like the chip in the back of it on like his the back of his neck that controls the arms, he's all good again, mostly, I think. but the point is, again, I haven't actually watched myself. I've seen plenty of clips, I've seen plenty of videos, but I have not actually watched the Raimi movies or the Mark Webb movies. But I can at least say, in the context of this film, they work, they're great, they're cool to see. That's pretty self-explanatory. Now, going back to the whole thing about how this movie... Okay, so how I was talking earlier about how, the people, a lot of people that don't like the MCU Spider-Man talk about how there's no consequences, there's no stakes, it's all goofy fun times. It's a Disney. I've heard some people even call them like Disney Channel movies, basically. This movie, as I think I said before, is the complete opposite of that. They take it all like 95% seriously. I only say 95 because some of the Marvel humor is there, but it's way toned down compared to what it normally is. They 95% of the time take the plot seriously, and that's really cool. Again, even as someone that really likes Homecoming, likes Far From Home, likes that goofy fun times, even I really liked the change of pace. Making him more Peter Parker, because again the whole thing with Spider-Man is actions have consequences and whatnot. And this movie is like, this movie was made for all the people that were like, there's no consequences, there's nothing. This movie is literally a response to that. He loses, like, actually, in some ways, he loses everything. He doesn't technically lose everything, but he loses a lot. And you can see the pain that it has on him. Tom Holland did a really good job with the emotional bits. Really good job. Huge props right there. He did a really good job in all the emotional bits where he was just, like, destroyed. And it was really well done. Again, they handled it really well. I really can't say that enough. They handled the whole... Again, they handled it really well. Okay, so... Now, one of those consequences, of course... should we talk about it already, or should we just save it for later? Actually, let's talk about Doctor Strange real quick. So, of course, Doctor Strange is kind of the resident, MCU cameo. We had, obviously, Tony Stark in Homecoming. We had Nick Fury in Far From Home. This one is Doctor Strange. But, unlike the last two movies, this one, and again, a lot of the people that don't like the MCU Spider-Man are going to appreciate this, but most of this movie, he is on his own, and that is really cool. Again, really like Homecoming, like Far From Home, but it's really cool to see him not rely on the mentor, so to speak. I like Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is pretty cool. Of course, I'm excited to see the next movie, and again, we'll talk about that later. But I like that, for the majority of the movie, it's just Peter, MJ, and Ned, and they're the ones that have to solve the problem. Doctor Strange, he has a little bit, of the spell, it breaks, all that stuff. And then basically they go to the mirror dimension, and then Peter traps Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension, and he stays there for the majority of the film. He only comes back in the final act, and of course we'll get to that when we get to it. But again, I think that I know a lot of people complain about the Tony Stark connection, but just a little thing here. There's no Tony Stark, like, really anything in this movie. There's a reference to Stark Industries at the beginning, and then, as people saw from the posters, there's the arc reactor that Electro gets, but it is not about Tony Stark at all. Again, people that don't like the MCU Spider-Man don't like this connection, the whole Iron Boy Jr. thing, which, by the way, they actually reference in the movie. There's like a shot after Peter's identity is revealed, and they're showing like the dailybugle.net with J. Jonah Jameson, played by, of course, the perfectly cast J.K. Simmons, but you already knew that because, come on, it's J.K. Simmons, it's J. Jonah Jameson. Who doesn't like that? And there's like a shot of I think a crying Spider-Man, and it says Iron Boy Jr. on the headline. I just kind of find that funny because it reminds me of how in a Hawkeye, there's a couple of shots where they have mugs or something, and it says Thanos was right. So it's like, hey, look, they're acknowledging the thing. And then there's actually quite a few acknowledging the thing moments in this movie. But again, we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, so. Yes, the arc reactor is there, but it has nothing to do with Tony. It just happens to be Stark tech, but it has no connection beyond that. There's not some deep history with Tony affecting any of this stuff. They have ditched the Tony connections, and I think a lot of people are going to appreciate that. Okay. So I've talked about how the emotional movements are good. They handle the story very seriously for the most part. Doctor Strange's moments are nice and all, but he's not in the movie that long, and I think that's a good thing, because again, people want to see Peter on his own, become his own Spider-Man, not relying on the other Marvel characters. They do that. Obviously, he has his friends, but you get what I'm trying to say. He's not reliant on some bigger adult to come in and save the day or whatever. Okay, now let's talk about. Now I guess we can talk about the moment. It's time for the moment you've been waiting for. Actually, no, we're not gonna talk about it yet. Actually, wait, does it happen after or before? No, it happens before. Okay, so I said earlier that Peter by the end loses a lot, and we'll get to the other thing he loses later. But the most notable thing he loses in this movie, and a lot of people were predicting this, so it's not exactly the biggest shocker ever, but yes, Aunt May dies. And again, like all the other emotional moments in the movie, they handle it pretty well. Again, it's treated seriously. You can see Peter grieving, genuinely grieving, and again, very well done. I know that that's a bit of a, because I know that I remember I watched it's gonna be so fun looking at all the live reactions and just kind of discussions on this movie, man. Once I'm done recording this, and I'm just gonna binge a bunch of them on YouTube. But I remember what's his name, Troy Boy. He's like a comic book YouTuber. He's kind of known for Spider-Man. I remember in his Spider-Man No Way Home predictions or whatever. He was talking about, he put the Aunt May dying in there, but he said he personally didn't want that because he thought it would be a waste of Marissa Tomei. And I haven't watched his first impressions yet. I know he has a quote-unquote review, a non-spoiler review, and the title for it is I think I love Spider-Man No Way Home. So that's very interesting. Okay, I'm very, very curious to see what High Top Films has to say about this movie, because I know High Top Films kind of has a negative rap for being like, the resident MCU Spider-Man hater, and it's like, yeah, kind of get it, but at the same time, his videos are really well done. Like his when High Top Films does a really good video, he does a really good video. Like, his Raimi videos, the Batman Forever video. Like, when he does like a big, long, clearly has a lot of time, dedication, love put into it type videos, they're really, really good. And of course, him being kind of known as like the MCU Spider-Man hater, so to speak, even though I think that he has more credit than just a MCU Spider-Man hater. Because again, he's like, yeah, I like MCU Spider-Man. But I still really like High Top Films, even if obviously I don't agree with him on I'll agree with him on some points. Again, I really like that this movie, treats stuff seriously. It doesn't have a ton of jokes in it. It does a lot of things people want out of that. But I'm very, very curious to see what High Top's opinion on this movie is. But again, that's a whole. The reactions to this movie, I'll of course look at on my own time. Let's move back to the actual movie itself. So yeah, Aunt May dying. I personally am okay with this. Yeah, we didn't really get that much development for her. She was just kind of the, fun, goofy, hot aunt. But again, they treat this story seriously. They treat it seriously, at least in this movie, and I feel like it all obviously, if how the end of Homecoming, right? There's the whole thing where she finds out, she's like, "What the?" And then they just skip past that. They don't show that. In No Way Home, Peter does say, "Oh, after May found out I was Spider-Man, my life, it was a complete nightmare for a couple weeks or something." So they mentioned it was a really contentious time for them, but they obviously didn't show it, and that was one thing people didn't like about Far From Home was that they didn't show the aftermath of May finding out Peter's Spider-Man. She's all supportive and everything, but again, it's nice that in this movie, even if they don't necessarily talk about that because it's under the rug at this point, again, Peter and May's relationship they take seriously, and that's why I thought it worked. I thought that May dying worked, even if she didn't really get all that much to do in the grand scheme of things. I thought it worked. And obviously that destroys Peter. I think it goes without saying that losing Aunt May just kind of destroys him. And then that leads us to now, actually, the moment you've been waiting for. The one thing that literally everyone on the planet knew was going to be in this movie. And I was spoiled in quotes. It's barely even a spoiler because, come on, we all knew they were in the movie. I was spoiled in quotes a day or two ago when it came out in when it came out in Asian countries or whatever, on the 15th. I was spoiled on the fact that Toby and Andrew were in it, but again, that's not a spoiler. We all knew they were going to be in it. But yeah, so now here's one thing that I was not expecting. I was not expecting the way they were introduced to be the way they were introduced, at least for one of them. So we had that scene with May and Ned at, I believe, Ned's house, or at least Ned's relative's house. After Peter's off, grieving at the Statue of Liberty, as we'll find out later. And then Ned, from stuff that happened earlier in the movie, has the ring that Doctor Strange uses to make portals, and he tries to teleport to Peter, and then you see him open a portal, and you see an alley. And at first, I didn't think much of it. I was like, okay, yeah, there's Peter. And then it quickly became apparent, wait, no. This is not going to be just Peter. And then you see the suit. And at first, I thought it was Toby. Then after looking closer for another second, I was like, oh, okay. And then, to the surprise of absolutely no one, or maybe, depending on how you look at it, the biggest reaction in the theater that we had was when Andrew showed up. When Andrew came coming through the portal, people hell yeah, woo! And then for some weird reason that I don't understand, a minute later, when Ned opens the portal again, and into the surprise of no one, Toby comes out, they didn't cheer almost at all. It was weird, and in a way I get it, because the way they introduced Toby was odd to me. Because I fully expected them to like okay, when they first brought in Andrew, it's like okay, like them bringing in Andrew first made sense to me because they want to build up to Toby because Toby's the big one, and then they don't really, you know. Andrew's there for like a minute or two, you know. He's like, oh, like MJ's like, oh wait, are you like, can I trust you? Whatever, are you really Spider-Man? You know, Andrew's hanging from the wall. He's like, oh come on, like this should be enough. And then there's like a little comedic bit or whatever. And then, again, Ned tries again, and then all of a sudden we just see Toby. Not Spider-Man, just Peter Parker Toby is just there. He's like, hey, I'm here, I guess. It was kind of weird. They didn't have some big grand scene where it's like, where, you know, the and it comes swinging through the portal. They didn't do anything like that. They just were like, oh yeah, here's Toby. It's almost like the movie was like, yeah, you guys all know he's in the movie. Here he is. So yeah, it was a little weird. But then eventually, you know, then MJ, Ned, Andrew, and Toby, they go to the Statue of Liberty. They meet Peter, and then we start to get, and that's when now we start to get some of kind of like, okay. So again, I haven't seen the first 5 movies, but I can say I actually really like Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker. I actually really like him. Now, didn't really care for Toby all that much. Apologies. Obviously, he's very popular. Not denying that. But I really... Okay, Tom's Peter in this movie was great. I really liked Andrew's. Toby was just kind of there for me. Again, I don't have the nostalgia of watching those movies, so obviously I would have felt a lot more if I did, but Andrew, even without watching the other movies, was like really fun to watch. I really liked watching him interact and, you know, do little quips during the battle and everything. That was really cool. But again, we'll get to that in a second. And then we get one of the first, aha, they did the thing. The first of the they did the thing moments. So as you know, Andrew and Toby go to Tom on the Statue of Liberty. And, you know, obviously he's grieving. He's just, like, done. Like, he literally says, I'm just done with all this. I just want to put the multiverse guys away or kill them. Because, oh yeah, spoiler alert, even though at this point, obviously, you know if you're watching this. The one that kills Aunt May is Green Goblin. If I didn't mention that before, then yeah, Green Goblin kills Aunt May. And he wants to kill. And yes, I said kill. If you get that reference, congratulations. But yeah, he wants to kill Green Goblin. Literally tear him apart. He literally says he wants to kill him and tear him piece by piece or something along those lines. And then, you know, Andrew, I believe, is the one that says, like, we understand how you feel. And this is where we get to the kind of obligatory moment of, like, oh, and then, like, Peter's like, oh, Tom, I should say. If I ever say just Peter, I'm talking about Tom, just in case you don't get what I'm trying to say. And if I say Andrew or Toby, I'm talking about Andrew or Toby. And then, you know, Tom's like, you wouldn't know. You're gonna say that you know, but you don't know. And then we get, again, the first of many they did the thing moments. Although this is less of a did the thing moment, more of just kind of like a moment. But still, people were guessing this was gonna happen. We get the moment of basically Andrew and Toby talking about how, you know, they had someone special. They had someone close to them that meant the world to them. And that, of course, was, say it with me, folks, Uncle Ben. So to all you guys that wanted Uncle Ben acknowledged and not just on a suitcase, they wanted them actually to acknowledge his existence. Even though it's kind of only a half existence because Tom's Peter doesn't talk about Uncle Ben at all in this movie, but Toby and Andrew bring it up, and they're like, yeah, we lost our Uncle Ben. And so we can totally understand what you feel like right now that Aunt May was taken away from you. It's basically that's basically what the scene is. Again, a lot of people are, again, it's done well. You know, it's what you basically would have hoped for. But yeah, so basically, yeah, it's that. The whole, like, we lost Uncle Ben, so we understand what you're feeling right now with losing Aunt May. It's basically what that scene is. And then they go, and they're basically, and then now, basically what they're doing now is they they're preparing basically for the final battle. And as part of that, or final battle, and basically they go to a lab. I forget where the lab is, but they go to a lab. And this is where we start to get all of like the Andrew, Toby, and Tom humor that everyone wanted to see. So so again, most of the obligatory they did the thing moments. So like they acknowledged the web shooters, they acknowledged it wasn't like super blatant, but they did do a them pointing at each other thing. There's a couple of things to happen later that we'll get to that they also did. That's like, hey, they did the thing. But yeah, obviously, you know, all the Toby, Andrew, and Tom stuff was pretty cool to see. Again, you know, I actually really liked Andrew, in this movie. Again, didn't personally feel anything for Toby, but again, I didn't watch those movies. But even without watching those movies, I really liked Andrew. So interpret that how you will, I guess. But yeah, so we got them, you know, interacting, and again, they're you know, it's not all just jokes. It's not all just the little jokes that everyone's expecting. They still treat the story with a good amount of seriousness and weight, and that's a good thing. And basically what they're doing is they're basically making cures for the villains, because again, the whole thing that Peter wants to do in this movie is he doesn't want to send them back because they're gonna die. He wants to redeem them and prevent that. So basically, Andrew, Tom, and Toby are making like antidotes and cures for, you know, the green. So and I'm pretty sure basically like Andrew helps make the cure for the lizard. Toby helps make the cure or the thing. Actually, no. I think Andrew actually helps Tom making like a new thingy for. Actually, no. Sorry, no. That's a different thing. Sorry, apologies. Point is, like, Andrew, Tom, and Toby, they're all like they're all working on basically on making the cures for the respective villains to make them normal again. And then we eventually get to the big third act brouhaha. We get to, of course, the Statue of Liberty fight, and okay, this is a little bit of a weird one for me. Don't get me wrong, it was cool. It was absolutely cool seeing all of them, you know, again, more interactions and more neat stuff. But for some weird reason, it feels like it's like maybe like not long enough. I don't know what it is, but it was cool. Don't get me wrong. It's not bad by any stretch. It was really cool. But there's a part of me that feels like something was missing. Again, I can't really pinpoint what that was, but point is, it was still really cool though. So we get okay. So you know that one shot of, you know, Andrew with the blue screen from the Cotton 8K leaks months ago? Well, guess what? We see that shot in the movie. We literally see the shot in the movie. I'm not in the movie, you guys. I'm the werewolf. It's a Photoshop. It's not real. I mean, of course we all knew it was real, but yeah. So and by the way, to the surprise of absolutely no one. So obviously the shot from the trailer, right, where Peter lands on like the Statue of Liberty, and then there's two obvious vacant spots for other Spider-Men. Well, guess what? The other Spider-Men are there in the actual shot, and then the big shot of like all of them about to hit the villains. And of course, you know, the Brazil trailer, right? There's the Brazil trailer that had someone punching the lizard. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, Andrew's the one that punches him. I wasn't 100% sure when it actually happened, but when I asked my friend about it, he was like, oh yeah, that was Andrew. I was like, okay, that makes sense. And yeah, we get the battle, and you know, it's pretty much what you'd expect. You know, you got the Peters kind of fighting all the different villains. We get when we get to the point where they redeem the villains, they each get little moments. Like Andrew, like he actually talks to Electro. Toby talks to Doc Ock, and like there's a moment in the movie like a little later on actually where like Toby and Doc Ock like talk, and they're like all best friends and everything, and it's like really neat. Like all the character interactions in this movie are great. Like they really did that well. So yeah, you know, they're all fighting, you know, the three Spider-Man versus the Sinister Five. You know, they're doing all that. It's cool. We get, you know, cool moments. Andrew does his classic quipping from the Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's cool. You know, all that stuff. Okay, so you know how I said, okay, there's something missing that felt missing, because the battle itself is good. the moments of the Spider-Man fighting are cool. Like, all that stuff is cool. But I was like, what's the thing that's missing? I know what it is. Now, like a week or two ago, I think the soundtrack supposedly leaked. I didn't look at it, but I heard that the Raimi theme, the TASM 1 theme, and the TASM 2 theme were all in that leaked soundtrack, and I deliberately didn't listen to it because I wanted to hear those first in the movie. And maybe I wasn't paying attention. I noticed, like, they used, like, a part of the Raimi theme. Again, like, I think during that scene I just mentioned of, like, Doc Ock and Toby, like, talking to each other, like, hey, what's up? I think outside of that, I don't think I heard them use any of the themes. Again, they used the Electro theme when Electro first shows up, but that's it. And that, again, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but that, I don't think they actually, like, really played any of the main themes, and that is a point I'm gonna, like if I had one complaint with this, because this movie's really good. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. This is really good. It's the best Marvel anything this year, not even a contest. Even if even outside of the multiverse stuff, it's better than, like, everything else this year. Just like the emotional stuff with Peter is really good. Even that, I think, carries it above all the other MCU movies and MCU stuff this year. Never mind Toby, Andrew, Sinister, whatever. But if I gotta knock one point off this movie, it's the fact that we didn't get a scene. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but we didn't get a scene of, like, Andrew and Toby fighting and having, like, we didn't hear, like, you know, like, we didn't have, like, a big moment of, like, Toby coming in and, like, kicking ass as, like, the, you know, as, like, his theme played. We didn't have like a moment with the do 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 do. Yeah, we didn't have a moment with Andrew or, like, his theme play, or at least the TASM 2 one, because the TASM 2 one is superior. Don't at me. Far superior in my opinion, but it's actually really good. But we didn't have a moment of, like, them, like, fighting or doing any. We didn't hear the themes at all, to my knowledge, and that's a bit of a disappointment. I'm not gonna lie. That's my only real complaint. But I'm gonna bring it up. I really wish we had heard the Andrew and Toby themes proper, not just little motifs. Like, we actually heard them in a real capacity at some point, because that would have obviously, people would have freaking lost their minds if they heard that. But it is what it is. And yeah, and then, so now we're going to talk about actually the two moments in the movie where I genuinely, like, really felt something. And like I said, the rest of the movie is genuinely really good. But there were two moments in this movie where I was, like, genuinely, like, afraid and, like, kind of scared. Or no, that's not the right word. No, sorry. Completely ignore that statement. What I meant is, like, I really felt the moment, is what I should have said. I really felt it. And those two moments were, okay, this is another one of the they did the thing moments, although, again, maybe not as blatantly as, like, the Toby web shooters and stuff like that, because it's less of a they did the thing and more of a just they did a thing that people were expecting. But to everyone out there that was like, oh, Andrew's gonna come in and save MJ, well, guess what? Andrew comes in and saves MJ, and when that happened, I felt that. I didn't even see I haven't seen The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I felt that. I felt the impact of Andrew saving MJ. I felt that, and you could see it on his face. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention this earlier, but earlier in the movie when like Toby and Andrew are like, oh yeah, Uncle Ben died, so we understand what you're going through. Let me okay. Toby said Uncle Ben. Andrew said Gwen. I forgot to mention that. Andrew said he lost Gwen. He later then mentions he also lost Uncle Ben, but the first one was Gwen. So they did a stab. So for people that didn't see The Amazing Spider-Man 2, they did sort of build up to the, like, him saving MJ moment, or at least there was a reason. I don't know. You get what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so yeah, Andrew saving MJ. I genuinely really felt that moment. It was really cool. We all expected it, but it was still really cool. And then I knew they weren't gonna go through with it because there was no way they were gonna do this. But that moment, like near the end of the battle, when Tom is like, oh yeah, Tom beats the shit. I don't say words like that, so don't get used to it. But he beats the shit out of, like, Green Goblin, because again, Green Goblin's the one that killed Ant-Man. He wants to freaking destroy him. And then Andrew come in and are like, no, you can't kill him. You can't just kill him. Well, I mean, they don't say it necessarily, but like Toby comes in, he stops Tom from killing Green Goblin. And then, shortly after that, Green Goblin stabs Toby in the back. And again, I didn't see the other movies, and I didn't even really feel that much of an attachment toward them even in this movie. But I felt that moment, even though I knew they weren't going to go through with it, because people would kill them if they actually went through with it. But even though I knew it wasn't going to really happen, when Toby got stabbed in the back by the Green Goblin, I felt that. I really, honest to God, did feel that. Even though I knew they were going to go through with it, because, like, people would riot in the streets if they killed Toby in this movie. I have been of the opinion that they're not going to kill any of the Spider-Men because, again, riot in the streets. But if they were going to, it'd be Andrew. I didn't think they would. I'm just saying if they were going to, it would have been Andrew. So at first, I was like, okay, again, I really felt it. I was actually genuinely shocked that Toby got stabbed, and I really felt it. But then, of course, immediately I was like, oh, they're not going to go through with this. Like, yeah, I felt it, but they're not going to go through with this. They're not going to kill Toby. Again, people would riot in the streets. They would try to cancel this movie. If they would try to cancel this movie and, like, everyone involved if they killed Toby. And they didn't. Again, no shocker there, but they didn't. But still, that moment I definitely really felt. And I'm sure there was a lot of people out there that even if they didn't really think they were going to actually do it, I think there's probably a lot of people out there that, like, were like, holy shit, when that moment happened. Again, I haven't looked at any of the audio reactions or any of, like, the spoiler reactions or anything like that, but I imagine that's going to be, like, a big moment for people. It's going to be like that moment where they stabbed Toby in the back, and for a split second I thought he was actually going to die, until I realized that they're not going to do that, because then people would literally, because then the entire internet would go against them. But still, I bet that's going to be a big moment right there. And then, yeah, so... But yeah, there's a lot of, like, little moments. I'm not, like, there's also this kind of weird scene in a way where Toby's like talking about, oh yeah, I got, like, a bad back, and then Andrew's like, oh yeah, I got a bad back too. Here, I'll fix it for you. And he, like, grabs Toby and, like, fixes his back, and then he's like, yeah, that actually worked really well. Again, there's a lot of neat little interactions between all the Spider-Men, and it's great. No shocker, but yeah, that's pretty good. But yeah, so yeah, overall, the Statue of Liberty fight was solid. We basically got what we want out of it. I just really wish we had the music. That's what they had was nice. Like all the the Doctor Strange theme, I think, is is like an underrated theme in the MCU. I think a lot of people talk about, the MCU has, like, very generic music. And while, yeah, there's a good amount of movies that do, there are some genuinely, like, obviously there's the Avengers theme. The Ant-Man theme is really good. I defy you to tell me the Ant-Man theme is not one of the best ones. The Doctor Strange one, in my opinion, is pretty good. And then, of course, there is the Homecoming theme. That, of course, is played in this movie a lot, because it's MCU Spider-Man theme. And they have actually a lot of scenes, even when there's not Doctor Strange on the screen, where they'll actually play, like, a remix or, like, a version of, like, the Doctor Strange theme. It's really nice. So yeah, that was cool. But again, that's the only thing. Statue of Liberty fight was cool. I'm mostly satisfied with it, but I really wish we had a scene of do 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 do. They had the themes playing. Do 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 do. Like, come on, we should have heard that at least once. Even if we didn't hear it in the battle, we should have heard it at least like when they first appeared. Like, if they had even just a little motif of it play when Andrew showed up, that would have been cool. But oh well, I guess you can't have everything. But yeah, and then the end of the movie. So the end of this movie. So this movie ends kind of how people thought it would, which is basically. Oh, actually, no. There's one thing I haven't talked about yet. So, the other moment from the trailer, where the moment from the trailer where it's like, oh, they're starting to come through, and I can't stop them. Everyone thought that's how Toby and Andrew were going to come in, or that's how some more villains were going to come in. No one actually comes in, but they allude to stuff. For example, there's an outline of like Kraven. There's an outline of Rhino. There's probably a bunch of other outlines in there I didn't recognize, but I at least saw Kraven. I at least saw Rhino. Obviously alluding to like the other universes and stuff. Aaron Taylor Johnson's Kraven movie. It's gonna be happening over at Sony. I'm sure that's what that was a reference to. Obviously the Rhino. Actually, I think that was a reference to like just a regular Rhino and not like the Paul Giamatti Rhino. But yeah. Also, there's a moment in the movie. I believe this is this is during the scene of like when like Electro, Max Dillon gets redeemed. So he gets like he's cured and he's talking to Andrew, and there's like a scene that's pretty kind of probably the most on the nose. What's the word? Foreshadowing in the entire movie. So there's a part where like Jamie Foxx, Electro is like, oh yeah, he was talking about like something about like multiversal Spider-Man, I think, to Andrew, and then he's like, I thought maybe you'd be black, and then the audience kind of laughed at that, okay, it's like okay, we have a little comedy stuff, because there's not that much comedy in the movie, but that was obviously supposed to be like a little comedy bit. I thought you'd be black. And then I think Andrew like apologizes for not being black. I don't know. I'm probably reading way too much into that. I'm pretty sure that was just supposed to be a little joke. I'm sure some people read into that way too much. I don't think it's supposed to be read into that much. I think it's just supposed to be a little joke about like whatever. And then the most obvious foreshadowing in the world happens. Electro says, well, if there's this many Spider-Man, there's bound to be a black Spider-Man out there somewhere, or something along those lines, and that was the most... Man, that was pretty on the nose. Ooh, there's gotta be a black Spider-Man out there somewhere. I wonder who that is. So to all the people out there that genuinely thought there was a shot of him appearing in this movie, no. You got a reference, though. You got a reference to him. We'll get him eventually. Obviously, that's supposed to be a setup. I mean, I know there was the thing from Homecoming, but like that was very obvious. No one on the planet could possibly miss it. Foreshadowing for miles, right there. Well, there's gotta be a black Spider-Man out there somewhere. Pretty obvious foreshadowing. But yeah. And then, now we can talk about the end of the movie. So, one prediction everyone had for the end of this movie was, one thing that a lot of people were predicting is that the movie was going to end with Doctor Strange offering to give Peter the chance to do the spell again. And that Peter was going to say, no, I did this, I need to suffer the consequences or whatever. And that does happen, but not as blatantly, I think, as people thought it would. Does he get a choice? I don't remember if he gets a choice in the matter or not. I want to say he... No, I don't think there's a choice. I don't think Doctor Strange says, do you want to do this or not? I think he just kind of does it, and Peter is like... Actually, no. Let me take that back. He does get a choice, because Doctor Strange is like, no, you're like, because of course at the beginning of the movie he's like, screw this, but now he's like, seeing what Peter's accomplished and everything, he's like, no, you've been through too much already. I'm not gonna put you through the, you like no one knowing who you are. And then Peter is like, no, to do it. It's what we have. You gotta do what you gotta do. So actually, let me take that. So actually, no. He does decide, no, we're gonna go through with it. It's okay, I completely forgot about this line. But even though, again, they mention Uncle Ben, not Peter, not Tom's Uncle Ben, but they mention Uncle Ben. You wanna know what else they finally mention? And it's not Toby or Andrew that says this. At least not the first time. We finally hear, great power comes great responsibility. Aunt May says it. And then like 2 minutes after she says it, she dies. But yeah, so she's the one that says the line. So it's like not quite Uncle Ben, but it's close enough, right? And it's not, and of course later on, there's like a scene, again, during the part where like Peter's like grieving on the Statue of Liberty before the fight starts, where like, he's like, yeah, like with great power, and then And then he gets cut off. And Toby says, comes great responsibility. And then he's like, wait, how do you know that? And then again, that leads into the whole like, oh, we went through that. We know. We know. We're Spider-Man. We know. But yeah, so the movie ends with basically, everyone doesn't know he's Spider-Man anymore. MJ doesn't know. Ned doesn't know. Happy doesn't know. No one knows he's Spider-Man. No one knows who he is. He's a complete and total stranger to the world now. And obviously, and even though I think I said Troy Boy. Is that his name, Troy Boy? Again, I think I mentioned him earlier, like Troy Boy. I think in his predictions video, he said he didn't want that outcome. I think he said he did not want that outcome. I am all for it, because to me at least, it basically just hammers home that this movie is treating this stuff seriously. That actions have consequences. Because that's one of the things that everyone has been complaining about is, oh, there's no consequences, everything's fine. This movie, he loses Aunt May, he loses basically everything. Like, he goes through a lot in this movie. Like, when Tom Holland said, oh, this is going to be a really depressing movie, it's probably not as depressing as I interpreted he would say by that statement, but it's pretty depressing for like an MCU movie, especially. It's pretty depressing, and again, they treat it seriously, and that's really cool. But yeah, so the movie ends with him being a complete stranger. He's living on his own. He's not living with Happy because he doesn't know Happy. There's a scene near the end where Peter goes to Aunt May's grave, and then Happy shows up, and he's like, so how did you know her? And then he's like, sorry. Peter's like, so how'd you know her? Actually, no. It was Happy that said, how'd you know her? And then Peter's like, Spider-Man. And then Happy says, yeah, me too. And then, because of course, Aunt May was his only... He lived with, obviously Uncle Ben's long gone. Aunt May's gone. He doesn't have Stark Industries or Happy, so he's completely on his own now. And guess what? They end the movie on him getting into a rundown apartment and he's on his own. Like, again, they're doing the thing people wanted. This movie is basically a response in almost every way to all the complaints people have had. Again, I really like Homecoming. I liked Far From Home. But this is exactly what people have wanted. Peter is on his own. He doesn't have anyone to support him. Okay, people want Aunt May, but you get, there's no lifeline. There's no nothing. He's on his own. He's going through hardships. He's really, honest to God, struggling. It's what people have wanted. It's what people wanted. And then the movie ends with on Christmas or near Christmas, and he actually has a new suit. We only get to see it for like 10 seconds, but he gets a new shiny suit that's more inspired by like the classic design. As opposed to like the newer designs that we saw in Far From Home and also saw for the majority of this movie. It's not the Stark suit. It's not the Homecoming suit. It's a new suit that's like nice and shiny, and it looks, for the brief minute we get to look at it, it looks pretty nice. And then he does like a final little swing sequence with, the do 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 as his theme is playing, and then the movie ends. But wait, we're not over yet, because of course, post-credit scenes. So, the first post-credit scene, I predicted this is going to be at least one of them, probably the first one, but at least one of them was gonna tie into Venom, because why would they do the thing that they did and then not follow up on it? Like I did not think he was going to be in the movie proper. I thought he was going to be post-credit scene only, and I was right. Not saying much because again, a lot of people thought he would be in the post-credit scene, but yeah, we do get to see Tom Hardy, Eddie Brock. We don't get to see Venom, but we get to hear his voice. We get Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock after the events of course, the post-credit scene from Let There Be Carnage. And then he's talking with like one of the guys that's working at like the bar at like the hotel he was staying at in the post-credit scene, that of course transformed into a different, more fancier one. And basically he's talking to this guy about I met an alien. I met an alien once. I know about aliens. I'm referring to like Riot and Carnage, I assume, or something like that. And then he's talking about, I lost my family. I lost my family to the snap for 5 years. And then there's like a couple of jokes about how like Tom Hardy making jokes about like Thanos, something about Thanos. I forget the exact specific points. They're talking about like Thanos and the snap and stuff like that and whatnot. And then you hear like Eddie, Venom, of course, is also voiced by Tom. If you don't know, by the way, Venom is voiced by Tom Hardy. So both Eddie Brock and Venom are Tom Hardy, which is pretty cool. In the movies and in this, I assume. And again, we don't get to see Venom. But we get to hear his voice a couple of times. And then, all of a sudden... Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. Oh yeah, at the very end, after Doctor Strange does the spell to restore everything and make everything good again, all of the characters go back to their own universes, if that wasn't obvious enough. I mean, of course they were. They weren't going to stay. Of course they're going to go back to their own universe. And then, all of a sudden... Eddie Brock disappears, and I think Venom is the one that says, "Hey, come on, we just got here." And then he just disappears. And I was a little like, wait, what? I wasn't like super surprised, but it was still like weird. Like, okay, wait, so they brought him into the MCU, and then they just took him right back out again, which doesn't make any sense because Sony clearly wants Venom versus Spider-Man. Tom Hardy wants Venom versus Spider-Man, and specifically Tom Holland's Spider-Man. So it was like, okay, wait, that doesn't make any sense because they clearly want to do Tom Hardy's Venom versus Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and now they're like backing off of it. But then on the desk, right before it cuts to the regular credits, we see a little piece of the symbiote on the table, and it starts to move, and then it cuts to black. So, this is most likely implying, of course, that no, we are not going to get to see, at least right now, we're not going to get to see Tom Hardy go up against Tom Holland. But the symbiote now exists in the MCU, and it's going to be in someone else is going to be the one that wears it. Maybe in Spider-Man 4, not that Spider-Man 4, but MCU Spider-Man 4. Maybe in MCU Spider-Man 4, or 5, or 6, or in Venom 3 or 4, whatever they do. Maybe we'll see, maybe Tom Holland's Peter Parker will actually get the symbiote, or maybe it'll be someone else. We don't know. But either way, that post-credit scene, or mid-credit scene technically, but I just call them post-credit scenes because it's just easy, simple, and we all know what that means. So they took Tom Hardy out of the MCU, which is weird, but they left the symbiote, obviously as a hint towards whatever the future may hold for that. And finally, we have the last post-credit scene. Now, I watched Tyrone... I watched like the Real Rejects and Tyrone Magnus's like non-spoiler like videos, like non-spoiler like review/first impressions, and I remember Tyrone Magnus said the first one was really interesting, and then the second one was like not as interesting because it was basically just a trailer. And when I saw the post-credit scene, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Like, okay, so you know how Captain America the First Avenger, you know how the post-credit scene for that movie is literally a trailer for the Avengers? That's basically what they did. It's not as blatantly, but that's basically what the post-credit scene of this movie is. Except this time it's a trailer, effectively, for Doctor Strange 2. And it's neat. And obviously that's the next big MCU movie that's coming out, and that'll be cool to see what happens in that. Of course, Sam Raimi directing and everything. But yeah, that was a little... I mean, I knew beforehand that it was a quote-unquote trailer, but it was kind of like, weird. Also, they acknowledge Wanda, because Wanda's in the trailer, because of course she's in the movie, and they acknowledge like Westview, so hey, look, WandaVision exists. And then yeah, that's how the movie ends. So yeah, I'm sure there's obviously some nuance in this movie that I've glossed over, but point is, it's really good. Like, I genuinely mean that. It's genuinely really good. Is it as good as the hype led a lot of people to believe? That obviously depends on what you wanted out of it. I would say, barring the music, barring the lack of the Raimi and Tasm themes in like the final battle, it succeeds with flying colors. What they did with Tom Holland's Peter Parker in this movie is really cool to see. I like that they're switching it up. I like that they're taking it more seriously, and they're like, the whole consequences thing again. Liked liked Homecoming, liked Far From Home, but I like that they're going into the aspects of Peter Parker that people have been complaining about and have been wanting for the last couple of years. They want the consequences, they want hardship, they want all that stuff, because that is what makes Peter Parker Spider-Man, and that is Peter Parker's life is supposed to suck. Not all the time, but it's supposed to suck. And Peter Parker gets a raw deal in this movie. Even at the end, he's still not in the best circumstances. Again, he's on his own, no Aunt May, no friends, no nothing. He's completely on his own. You know, in a bleh apartment, but he's still Spider-Man. But now he's on his own, and it's going to be really interesting to see what the future of the franchise holds. So when Tom said, this is the end of the Homecoming trilogy, of course, you hear that and you're like, well, of course it's the end of the Homecoming trilogy. It's the third movie. But no. It's very obvious that the next trilogy of MCU films with Tom Holland are going to be very different than the first two. Gone are the happy, goofy, fun times of jokes every other scene or whatever that people didn't really like all that much. And again, I like those movies, but they're like all the stuff people didn't like the people, because obviously a lot of people like MCU Spider-Man. I like MCU Spider-Man. I liked him before this movie, and I like him after this movie. But there's also a lot of people that really don't like him for one reason or another. The consequences, Uncle Ben, a variety of things. They addressed most of those complaints in this movie, and I think that for people that didn't like the MCU Spider-Man before, they're going to be a lot more keen on seeing where he goes from this point onwards. So, yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home. Pretty good, obviously. At this point, if you haven't seen the thing, if you haven't seen the movie and you just listened to this whole thing, then, well, I warned you about the spoilers. But what did you guys all think of Spider-Man No Way Home? Let me know down below. And yeah, future of the MCU is definitely interesting. Or sorry, it's looking very interesting. I mean, Doctor Strange is going to be, kind of, expanding upon some of the stuff we saw here. We're going to have Thor, we're going to have Secret Invasion. It feels like we're getting out of, the rut, so to speak. I liked WandaVision, I liked Loki, I actually liked Shang-Chi more than I expected. But for the most part, the MCU stuff this year so far has just kind of been there, Black Widow was Shang-Chi was actually pretty decent. Eternals was Falcon Winter Soldier was kind of neat, but what I'm trying to say is, none of them were I needed to see this. I saw them because it's a new MCU thing. I have to see it. But this is the first MCU thing in Phase 4 that I genuinely really liked, and I'm really interested to see what the future of both the MCU and what Spider-Man the MCU is going to be going forward. So, man, we're almost an hour. This is a long one. Then again, it's Spider-Man. This is a big movie, so we're going to talk about it a lot. But yeah, so that's going to be it. Again, let me know your thoughts down below. What did you think about the movie? What did you like, not like, etc.? And again, if you haven't seen this movie yet for some reason, and you just don't mind getting spoiled to hell, go see this movie. And with that being said, this is Logan509XP, and I'll see you guys next time.